Hey guys, welcome back to Shaki's Corner. It's Shakira over here with another video. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for always passing by. I really appreciate. Thank you for the love, support. I really love you all. Those that are seeing me for the first time, you're most welcome. Please join the family by subscribing, liking, sharing, and commenting on this video. Obviously, don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you're notified every single time that I post a video. Before I continue, guys, I'm very sorry for the way I sound. I have a very terrible flu, but obviously I wanted to make a video because I promised to make these types of videos, and here I am. So let's continue. Today I am going to be telling a different story, and just like the other stories, this is also a story from one of my TikTok followers, and she shared this story of hers on our live, one of the lives that I always have on TikTok. So for purposes of, privacy and so on, I'm going to give that TikTok follower of mine a name, and I'm going to call her Fatima. Why? Because I know a lot of Fatimas in my life. So yeah, I'm going to call her the easiest name that I can. So I'm going to start with a little background story of Fatima. And Fatima is a mother. She's a Ugandan lady, and she's a mother of 3 children. And all these children, she got them from her previous relationship stroke marriage. So she says she didn't study that much because unfortunately she got pregnant while she was still in primary school, primary 6 to be exact, and she dropped out of school to go and get married. As you might all know, the dynamics of most African homes, once a girl gets pregnant, that's like it for them. Some parents don't even continue to pay for your education. They feel like, okay, you've destroyed your future, that's it for you. So she was forced to get married to this guy that impregnated her, and this guy was in senior 2 when she got pregnant. She was in primary 6, and this guy was in senior 2 in high school. So we might know that they were still children. All of them were still children when they got married. And you know what happens when children marry each other? Nothing good comes out of it. So while in this relationship, the family of the guy wanted him to continue studying. They felt like she was pulling their son down and all of that. And obviously, she wasn't coming from a good background either. Her family wasn't well off, so having so many siblings too was also another problem, because her being pregnant was like she had relieved some burden of her parents, because now the time that they would have spent on her, they were going to now put it on the other siblings. So she literally didn't have where to go apart from be stuck in this relationship that she was forced into. So while in this relationship, she gave birth to 3 children, and she says she really endured the worst in this relationship: verbal abuse, physical assaults, and things like that. But obviously, every single time she wanted to talk about it, they would tell her, oh, you know what, oh, men are like that, you should pray about it. So she was literally in a state where she couldn't even think for herself because she was young. She literally needed care herself, and the man too was young, and they were all just there. So she says one time she went to see her family with her man, or her husband at the time, and her home was mainly made of like mud and sticks, so it wasn't like anything fancy. So while the parents and her were sitting in the house, the man receives a phone call, and he decides to excuse himself and go outside to pick up the phone. And so he goes behind the house, and while on phone he could talk, and the people in the house were hearing him. So it seemed like there was some sort of argument on the phone where he was asking this person like, are you sure it's mine, which literally just told her that this man probably impregnated another lady, and this lady is telling him, I'm pregnant, and he's like, are you sure it's mine? So because of this, she felt so humiliated, because this guy didn't even have the courtesy to wait and have this conversation with his side chick or whatever, and he instead decided to have it here where he knew very well that his parents could hear him. So apart from the verbal insults that she got in this relationship, she also got a lot of like insults about her family being poor, and her husband's side knew about all of this, and they always told her, oh, your family is poor. So they didn't have any respect respect whatsoever for her family. So this was like what really broke her, and she was like, I think I've had enough in this relationship. I am still young, I already have 3 children and all of that. So she decided to go pick up her things and go back to her parents' house. But like I told you, her parents' house wasn't the most fancy house, and she had other 5 siblings, and so like it was literally struggle. So because of this dynamic, she literally had to force herself to leave home and go look for greener pastures. Remember, at this time she had 3 children, and they were all just toddlers. The kids were in the same age range, you know, and you know, because she had spent over 5 years with this guy in this marriage, so she had 3 children in a period of 5 years. When she leaves, she contacts a friend that she knew who was like, oh, you can come here in Kampala and find a job. So she came to Kampala, and the first job that she got was a house help. She was working as a house help in somebody's home, and things didn't go well, so she had to leave and go and find a job in a restaurant. So while there, she would like think so much because she had to send a little money she got back home to help her kids, because she had left her kids with her mom and her parents. So they needed some sort of help. And in this restaurant, she used to earn 3,000 shillings every day, which is literally not anything, but obviously it's better than nothing, right? One time while she's working, she would literally see, you know, these people coming into the restaurant, interracial couples, a Mzungu and a Ugandan lady, things like that. And she kind of like liked that. She was like, oh, in her head she was like, I think if I find a Mzungu, all my problems will be solved, because she says these ladies always looked nice, they looked, you know, fancy and all of that. And I was like, I think if I find a Mzungu, my problems will be solved. And so she would also see like on social media like TikTok, and she would find like couples, like interracial couples, and she fell in love with the idea of finding herself a Mzungu. So she did her thorough research, and she decided to hop onto some dating apps. And while there, it wasn't very long until she met one guy from Sweden, and they talked for a good number of months. They chatted every single day, they would video call. And one thing that you should understand is that Fatima didn't know very good English, so she was literally, you know, struggling. But the more she kept on being having conversations with these people, she like her English would improve. Up to date, her English is not the best, but you know, she says, you know, I'm trying, I'm better than how I started. So she meets this Swedish guy, they talk everything, every day they would video call here and there. And they reach an extent where this guy begins talking about marriage, and he's like, I'm going to come and marry you, I want to marry you when I get to Uganda, blah blah blah. And this guy asks her like, okay, what does it take for me to get married to you, and all of that. And she tells him, remember, Fatima is not well educated, right? So she doesn't know that much. So all she knows is, you know, Kwanjula and things like that. So she tells this guy, oh, we do this Kwanjula and it's done like this and like that. So this guy is like, oh, okay, so how much do we need to do that? Because I want to get married to you when I come, and then I want to bring you with me here to Sweden. Obviously, that's what every person wants to hear, right? Yeah. So she falls for this. She now begins like spreading the gossip or to people like, oh my god, I'm going to get married, to her friends, her village mates. She says that in their village, like her family was like a laughing stock, because the firstborn got pregnant and she's not married, and she has 3 kids that she's dumped on her parents, and the parents don't have any plan whatsoever. They're like, no money, nothing. So she was like, when I got this, I was literally excited and I couldn't wait to share this news, you know, because I felt like it was a way of telling these people that were always laughing at me and my family that, well, God does not sleep. Now look where I am. Not only am I marrying, am I going to be introduced, or I'm going to introduce my man, but I'm also getting married to a foreigner, a Mzungu, you get. So yeah, this guy tells her, oh, plan everything and then you can tell me, and when I get there, everything is going to be done. So they plan, and the guy was to come in August of that particular year. And The guy also goes ahead to send her some money, and he sends her 150 euros to make a deposit for the apartment that they're going to stay at. So she says, Shakira, I had never received that kind of money in my life. Nobody had ever given me that kind of money. I was excited. I did I did my best. I went and looked for an apartment, and I paid that deposit because this guy said he's going to come and pay for the rest. He even told me to look for service providers for everything that we will need for the introduction. So she does that. She looks for service providers, for catering, for decoration, for everything. All now she's waiting. She's telling this that I'm going to be making my introduction in August. Like, she begins getting all these service providers, like consulting, some of them telling them, like booking them, like on this particular date I'm going to be having an introduction. It's with a Muzungu, he's coming to pay for everything, so please be available. You get? So she makes all these kind of announcements. She's told her family members, and her parents are spreading the gossip in the village. Like, everybody's just waiting for Muzungu to get to Uganda, and they get married. August wasn't very far. August reached very quickly, and they went to the airport with the family. She says, Shakira, I had to borrow money because I didn't want to be embarrassed. You know, this guy is coming, we are going to do this introduction, and at least the least I could do is like borrow money and get a small car, and we go and pick him. So she doesn't go alone to the airport. She doesn't go alone to the airport. She goes with her family. She goes with her mom, her siblings, and one of her kids. They go to the airport. This guy had told them, of course, the date and everything, like, this is when I'm arriving. So they reach to the airport, they wait. Nobody's coming. They wait from morning to evening. Nobody has appeared anywhere. They begin asking, like, what is happening? Is he going to be here? No sort of communication, like, okay, I'm coming, or maybe we've been laid over. Nothing. And now she begins to to get scared, like, oh my God, my village people have started working. So she messages this guy with her phone, like, where are you? Messages are not going through. Are you coming? Messages are not going through. So when she calls this guy, still the calls don't go through. So she borrows a phone from a different person. She messages, the messages go through, and this person reads them. But the moment that she realizes that it is her, they block that number too. This is when she realized that this guy had blocked her. The messages with other numbers would go through, and the calls too would go through. So this girl, like, she's broken, she cries. I remember she borrowed money, and even the other 150 euros that they had sent her, she took it to that apartment. So she cries herself back to her home, and she doesn't understand why, because everything was going great until that day. Like, why would he do this? After some time, well, she gets over it, and you know, after like a few months, she gets over it, because it's life. She's not gonna kill herself. She has kids, after all. She has kids to take care of, and her family, so she cannot dwell on this. So she says, but I first took a pause of dating apps because I was now skeptical, because every time I would be like, what if I find the same thing again? What if I meet the same guy again, like with the same story? But after getting over it, she goes back to the dating apps, and this is where she meets an American guy. So they talk with this American guy for some time, and luckily enough, this guy makes it to Uganda. She says, this time around, I was like, you know, I learned my lesson, and I was like, you know, keep these things at low and everything. So she meets this American guy. The guy comes to Uganda, and he came and spent here like 2 months. So she says, Shakira, those 2 months were like I was living in hell. This guy was so overprotective. This guy was insecure. This guy was everything. He had a lot of issues, anger issues, name it. Like, every small thing, he would literally quarrel. The guy would insult her. He would call her names, you know. He paid for the apartment where they were staying, but oh my goodness, she was like, Shakira, the problem that I did was that when I went to book this apartment, I booked it in my name. When he sent the money, I went and booked this apartment in my name. So in case of anything, I was the one liable. This guy was having a lot of issues. She says at this time when she met this American guy, she had her small business. she had a small boutique that she was running, so she would like go and be at her boutique and then come back later. That this guy would always like get her phone, go through her phone, you know, do a lot of searching. If anybody even called her, that would be an issue. If she went like to her boutique and maybe came back even 30 minutes later than she always does, that would be an issue. So this guy even told her that she should stop working, close down her boutique and stay at home with him. And he was like, I'm providing everything after all, just stay here with me, why are you working? And she's like, Shakira, I had a family, you know, I cannot rely on this man 24/7, because what if things don't go well? I learned my lesson. What if they don't go well? So she refused to do what? To close down her business. So she says one day this guy goes to her workplace, because he knew that like that those 2 months that he had spent here, he knew of course where she was working. And when she went to her business, he told her, you need to close, we need to go, like going back home. And she's like, oh, I still early. The guy just gets angry and drives off and goes back to the apartment. When she says when she got to the apartment, she found things broken, plates broken, the mirror broken. This guy had broken things in the house. He had broken things, cups, plates, mirror, what have you, name it. And guess what? This is something that they have to pay. It's an apartment, an Airbnb. If you do some damage, you have to pay. And after breaking these things, this guy packed up his things and left the apartment. He left the apartment. She was like, I was in for it. Like, I had to pay. We had to sit down with the owner of the apartment and reach into an agreement, and I had to agree and pay this lady's money. And she said, Shakira, I was like, now this is it. I don't know if I will ever find love. She was like, this guy literally showed her shege, and she was like, I'm very happy, because those 2 months when the guy was in Uganda, he had proposed to her. You get, he had proposed to her, and she was like, I'm actually very lucky that I didn't actually get married to this guy, because imagine realizing this when we are already married. That would be something else. Like after all that, she worked and she paid off this Airbnb fee in a period of 2 months. She paid off like all the broken things, because she had a small boutique. Even if she was getting some little money there, but remember she had kids to take care of, so she agreed and paid off this in a period of 2 months. So after she had paid everything off, she didn't hear anything from this guy. When that guy went in the apartment and broke everything and packed his bags and left, that was the last time that she ever heard from this guy. She like, that was the last time. The guy never messaged. The only thing she messaged him was like, how could you do this? Like, you know, I have to pay. You know, she was like trying to talk to him if he's gonna pay or anything, but the guy never replied her. So that was the last time that she ever heard from this guy. So she goes on with her life and her small boutique, and everything is going great. And just one random the guy messages her back. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, after months had passed. And she's like, you know what, I forgive you, you know, things happen. But she didn't go back with this guy, though he came back with the intention of, okay, they should rekindle what they had. She was like, no. I had a fair share. The 2 months that we spent together were enough, and I cannot, you know, do any more of this. Obviously, she goes back to the dating apps, because as you know, us dating app warriors, we never give up. Something fails, always go back until you find what you're looking for exactly. So she goes back to the dating apps, and luckily enough, this time she finds somebody that understands her. So, you know, they, you know, talked for some time, they met. The guy went back to his country, he came back and proposed to her on the second time when he was here, and they got married. So she's like, Shakira, right now the only reason as to why I'm even telling you this story is that, guys, I went through a lot to finally find somebody that literally, you know, is what I was looking for. It was like a journey. So she's like, you know, sometimes like this story of mine, like how I went through this whole thing, literally gave me a lot to learn. Because she's like, the first incident of, you know, telling the whole village and the person doesn't show up, it's like, it just taught me how to keep things low-key. You know, I have to keep quiet until something finally happens before I can literally jubilate, because this happened to me and I was so embarrassed. Like, everybody now was asking me, so where is the Muzungu? Where is the Muzungu? Where is the Muzungu? This is what I also keep telling you guys, that sometimes when we find, you know, what we assume to be love on these dating apps, it's better if we keep it on the low until something happens, until you're sure. You know, instead of jumping in joy and be like, oh my god, you tell the whole clan and be like, oh, I found somebody. Let's keep it on the low, because guys, it's really embarrassing. You know, And yeah, she's like, sometimes it was, I literally learned a lot, because I, like, every single time that I got disappointed, I knew what I did wrong, and I had a way of improving, that. So I became very cautious with what I was doing. And and I also didn't give up. Like, I was persistent, because I wanted something. I wanted my life to change. And she's like, the reason as to why I even said I want to date marry a Muzungu, it's not because of anything. It's just that I had been in some relationships in the middle there, which obviously we're not going to talk about, with my fellow Ugandan men, but I was disappointed every single time. But seeing these interracial relationships, and how these men literally care for their women, I was like, maybe, you never know, it could be me. But she's like, I really faced a problem when it came to have like the kids. And when I told somebody that, oh, I have 3 kids, they'll be like, oh, I'm not looking for a lady with kids. So that was also a huge problem for me. But anyway, I kept on being persistent and going back, taking my time off, and then go back. And later on, obviously, God answered my prayers. I found somebody that had the same values as me, because she's a Christian. Actually, I just used the name Fatima, just for but she's a Christian. So like, I found somebody that I had the same values as me, was God fearing, and we all were looking for the same thing. So she's like, I really learned my lesson, and this should also be a lesson to all of us that are on these dating apps or are planning to go. If we find something good, sometimes keep it to yourself, because the more that you keep on shouting to the whole world, you're welcoming, you're giving room for the devil to come and destroy whatever was even forming. So unless you're very sure, then you can literally tell the whole world. This actually reminds me of a story that I was watching or scrolling through TikTok one time, and I was reading a story of, I think, a Kenyan lady that was talking about how she met a Muzungu, and she went with her whole family to pick him at the airport, just for this Muzungu to have another lady waiting for him. So yeah, this is it. Like, sometimes we just have to keep something good things to ourselves, because even though something bad happens, you can know how to deal with it silently. Do you know how difficult it is to deal with shame that is open and like, it's just too much? So that's why we keep on bringing these stories. Maybe if something like this happens to you, you can always say, oh, I think I watched a story like this on Shakira's page. Sometimes you can just come back and be like, okay, I need maybe a lesson or two. So that's why we keep on bringing these stories, so that we can learn from them. I know finding love online is very difficult, but it's not impossible. It's very possible, but it's very difficult, and you have to literally be cautious, because it's like gambling, guys. You do not know what is, because sometimes somebody is going to go through a scenario and it's going to be very different for you. Things change. What worked for me might not work for you. So that is it. But as long as we all get these small things, because you might find something similar, you might be in the similar state, so you can always learn something from it. Anyways, this was today's story. Thank you guys for watching it to the end. I love you all. Thank you for always passing by. Love you. Have a lovely day. Bye.